mawaziri humu nchini. Hebu tusonge mbele ambapo tume ya maadili na kukabili ufisadi nchini EACC inazungumza na wanahabari kwa sasa, ambapo mwenyekiti wa tume hiyo Daktari Eliud Bukala anaongoza mkutano huo kwa sasa.
Discussion with the ambassador. Specifically, we discussed modalities of enhancing our capacity in asset tracing and recovery, financial investigations, intelligence management, and educational awareness on the fight against corruption. These fronts will strengthen the quality of our investigations, ensure that confiscation of illegally acquired property and assets are forfeited, and all kind of unexplained wealth returned to the state. In this regard, the EU has pledged to support the Commission through advocacy for servant leadership and accountability of public officers. In addition, the EU has affirmed its commitment to support the Commission in enhancing its capacity through specialized trainings on transboundary investigation and the issue of the fight against corruption. In conclusion, we recognize the success in investigation and prosecution of corruption is of mutual benefit to both the society and the economic well-being of this country. We appreciate His Excellency the Ambassador for his commitment in promoting culture of integrity in Kenya, and the Commission welcomes similar partnership with all the stakeholders. And today we mark as the beginning of deeper cooperation between the Commission and the EU. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Hi, good morning. Archbishop, let me just perhaps say a warm word of thank you to you, your commissioners, your CEO and all of your directors for taking a significant part of your busy agenda today to talk me extensively through your work, your different actions. I must say I've been very impressed about what I've heard. I was obviously aware of the work of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission in actively investigating corruption cases, but it was a pleasure to also learn about some of the preventive work you're doing, your corruption risk assessments, which you run to look at the systems in place, your training, your change management, also to try and change the debate about corruption, to make it clear that corruption and criminal networks are often interlinked, and the same people engaged in corrupt practices are often financing criminal organisations who are also behind some of what we see as terrorist operations in Kenya that are costing the lives of Kenyan citizens. And I take this opportunity to also express my condolences on behalf of the European Union to a number of the citizens that have lost their lives in recent terrorist attacks, particularly in the northern counties in Kenya. Make no mistake, there are links between some of the corrupt practices that are going on and these loss of lives. I think also from our side as the European Union, supporting the Kenyan authorities in the fight against corruption, I think it's probably one of our top priorities, if not the top priority. And I was particularly pleased to hear today about the multi-agency work, the way in which the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is working hand in hand with the DPP, with the DCI, and the results of some of this work. If I'm not mistaken, I think last year alone you secured 51 convictions. Last year alone you prevented something like 14.5 billion Kenyan shillings being lost to the Kenyan citizens, the Kenyan taxpayers. And I have a great deal of sympathy with the point that the President made so eloquently in his address in Mombasa earlier this week, that with full respect to the different roles of the different bodies and the independence in particular of the judiciary, 2020 needs to be the year in which we see an increase in the tempo of convictions and asset seizures. I think there's a lot of work being taken on the investigative front. I think we've got now something around 130 high-profile cases in front of the courts, and we're hoping that we will see convictions, asset seizures, and people who have engaged in corrupt practices no longer being able to hold public office, no longer being able to travel freely, and an end to this practice here in Kenya. it will make a huge difference in terms of the impact of public spending and the ability of Kenya to deliver services to its citizen and to change the quality of life. Thank you.
One or two questions?
On the matter of NTV, I would assume that you have really been providing support to the EACC before today. What additional support have you agreed upon specifically following your meeting?
I think in particular we've agreed that we will try where specific short-term needs come up from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Imagine, for example, there is some particular forensic expertise they need or expertise in a given sector, but we will look to put in place a system that will rapidly allow us to mobilise that. Equally, I think we've had a discussion about what more can we do to support the development of the overall capacity of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and support some of their own training efforts. So I think these are the areas which we've identified, and we've looked at a practical way in which we will be able to respond rapidly to that. We've also had a reflection, if you don't mind me saying it, of perhaps organising in the very near future as well a meeting with the entirety of the EU ambassadorial corps present here in Nairobi to really create those strong links between the EU and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. So there will be a couple of very practical examples.
You also raised the issue of asset seizures. Any agreement on that front?
I think we've already got quite a lot of judicial cooperation taking place between EU agencies, and without going into the specific details, my colleagues or the colleagues from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission explained to me a couple of cases where their investigation has relied on tight cooperation with their partners within EU member states. So this is a practice obviously that is welcome and we encourage. And on asset seizures, there have been cases in the past. I mean, probably the most famous one known in Kenya is the Ango leasing, where in an EU member state, asset seizures have taken place and funds have actually been recovered and returned to Kenya. I think this is something we would wish to continue. There is no tolerance for corrupt practices from EU companies. Many of our own member states actually have legislation that criminalises any attempt to pay a bribe, and we would wish to see where there are investigations that run across borders, the judicial cooperation way of working being enhanced and further strengthened.
My question is to the ambassador. My name is Kenna from People Daily. Just wanted to know, is there a figure, is there an amount of money you're pumping in this agreement? I mean, in terms of assisting the training and all that. And then to the EACC, you talked of personnel. Maybe you'd share with us if there is the issue of the shortage. What are you lacking in terms of the number of personnel to educate, and how much would you require? And then again, back to the EU, there is the issue of you're part of the game in that why do you allow this money to be invested in your country? You don't question it when the person.
Maafisa wa tume ya kupambana na ufisadi EACC pale wakikutana na maafisa wengine kutoka Umoja wa Mataifa ya Uingereza, ambapo wanazungumzia masuala ya ushirikiano kati ya tume hiyo ya EACC na mataifa haya katika kuhakikisha kwamba